The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick confirmation if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Please give me a quick confirmation, everyone, so that I can be assured that I'm audible for everyone and you all are able to see my screen as well. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, Shweta, Kunak, webinar registrant, Rahul, Rajendra. Okay, webinar registrant, we can get the you can give the confirmation using the same method that you have used for asking the questions, right? So you all can use the same questions tab to give me a quick confirmation, everyone. All right, wonderful. Okay, before we get started, let me introduce you to our Meetup portal that we all can join to stay updated on the current happenings, on the current live webinars that we are conducting on a regular basis, right? So we do have so you can find us on meetup.com/edureka. So let me share this link with everyone. Let me share this link with everyone. Here you go. So you can use this link to join, guys, so that we can all stay updated on multiple webinars that we are conducting on a monthly basis. So we have more than 100 plus live webinars on different topics, including DevOps, AWS, cloud computing, Python, different language platforms that we can get started into our journey on improving our skill sets, right? So here we conduct more than 100 plus live webinars in any given month so that we can have access to all of these webinars so that we can stay aware on the latest trends and technologies being used. And the best part of this one is these are completely free. So these webinars last for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and we can join this particular meetup so that we can be well informed way before the webinar starts, so that we can join these kind of webinars on time, right? So we have already a good pool of members who have already joined, and there are multiple more members who are joining on a regular basis, right? So we can use this to get started and stay aware and stay updated on the current trends and happening in the industry, right? All right, so now let's get, okay, Ravi, so when we try to play the oldest webinar, it does not run. Ravi, again, it may, in case you are unable to see some kind of, or some of the selective webinars, then please feel free to contact the support team and they'll be able to help you out on that part. All right. All right, so now let's get started. Okay, before we get started, let me introduce myself. So I've been working in this IT industry for almost 10 years now, where I started my career working as a UI designer, designing the front end and back end of different applications. So I've been mostly working in different industry domains, including insurance, banking, retail, pharmaceutical, location-based services, and other satellite imagery business, where I've been actively working in markets of India, US, Canada, Australia, Singapore, and other Southeast Asian markets so far, right? And from there onwards, I've been leading global teams in design, development, and marketing of these solutions across globe. And I have been and in terms of corporate training front, I've been working extensively as a corporate trainer since last 5 years, where I have been working in training the workforce of companies like Accenture, Mercedes, EY, Capgemini, Google, Grab. So I've been working on training the workforce of these companies in staying updated on the current trends and technologies. So how they can use the current trends, how they can stay updated on implementation of the current technologies to make their solutions more prominent and more advanced, because as we know, in this highly competitive world, we have to stay a step ahead in getting the solutions delivered to the clientele, right? And that's exactly what I have been helping these companies achieve that, right? Now let's get started on a Git and GitHub tutorial. Now, as we know, Git is a part now. So the main agenda for today's session here would be, we'll be discussing what exactly version control is, what are different components of version control, and why we need version control into our platforms, into our system, right? Then we'll be having a good discussion on different version control tools out there, and we'll discuss which tool is the most popular and which tools to and when to use which tools in what kind of projects. Then we'll have a quick discussion on GitHub and Git, what these are and what is the entire structure for GitHub and Git. Then we'll discuss the case study of dominant enterprises, how they use GitHub and Git to improvise the entire delivery and the operations, and how they use it to manage the entire development team in a better and more controlled environment, right? And then we'll discuss on different Git features. And at last, we'll be having a hands-on on Git operations and command. That means how we can set up Git and how we can get started working on our project using Git and then deploying it on GitHub. All right. So now, first of all, let's discuss on what exactly we mean by version control. Now, when we say version control, we basically need to maintain, now every development team out there needs to maintain a version of the code that they are working on, right? Now, when we say version, we simply mean, for example, let's say when we are working on any particular project, let's say then there are multiple iterations that we are applying on those projects. There are multiple iterations, multiple changes that we are doing, then obviously as a team, we need to make record. We need to maintain a track record of those changes so that when we want to roll back, we have a version to roll back. That means we do not replace the code, we do not delete the earlier versions, so that in case our versions are rejected, in case our current layout is having multiple bugs, then we can always have a version to roll back to, right? So that we don't have to do the same work again and again, and this will improve the proficiency and the current output of the development team itself, right? Now, for a better understanding, let me just draw this out for everyone so that we can all have a better understanding for the same. Just a moment. And as a simple rule here, guys, in case you have any questions, in case you have any queries coming in, please feel free to post those questions one by one in the questions tab, right? And even in and so that I can see a good visibility, and as soon as I have a good visibility over the questions, I can make sure that each and every of your queries are answered one by one, right? Because the main goal of this entire session is to make it as interactive as possible, right? Otherwise, it would have been a simple recorded video itself, right? Which we obviously don't want. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you want. And it may happen that some of your queries may get unanswered, may get unnoticed, because we have a good number of participants who have joined in, right? So sometimes it may happen, some of your queries may get lost, may not be noticed. So don't feel disheartened in those scenarios, and keep on posting the same questions again and again, so that once I have the visibility, I can make sure that all of your questions are answered one by one itself. All right. All right. So now let's get started. Okay, I have a query from someone. Gurjeet, so do we maintain versions on daily basis. Yes, coach. No, not exactly, coach. But again, as soon as we are making any changes, as soon as there are multiple iterations, then we do need to maintain versions out of it, right? We'll see what exactly versions we have to create and maintain step by step as we continue further. All right. No problem. Thank you for the confirmation. Now, for example, let's understand the basic requirement of Git. Why exactly we require Git and how we can use Git to improvise the complete process of our software development, right? For example, let's suppose here we have a web page. Here we do have a web page here. And here we have, suppose currently we have something written under H1. So here we have added something as under H1, and now we have closed it. We have now closed the H1 here, right? And this is what this is, version 1. Now, suppose the client came to us and again it asked for some changes where we, now apart from H1, we also need to add H2 as well. We also added H2. We also added H2, right? And we also added H3 as well. So these two changes we did in the second version, right? So this we can refer to 2, right? Now again, the user again came back to us and again it again asked us for a third change, right? So again, we did the same change here. Again, we added, suppose, a paragraph as well on top instead of header. Then we had some only 3, right? And again, these are only 3 elements. Now this is version 3. All right. Now, after a while, the client came back to us and said, okay, their users have rejected this version and now they want to roll back to the first version, right? Now, if we had not saved the first version, then again, what we had to do, we again have to go back and recode the same version, right? But in case we are maintaining versions, what we can do, we can simply sit back with a smile. We can always say to a client, okay, it's okay. We can roll back to the previous version, right? Because we know we don't have to work, we don't have to do anything. We simply have to roll back to the previous version that we have maintained a copy of it, right? And that exactly is a requirement for version control system. So are we all clear on the version control system principle, guys? Please give me a quick information, everyone. So are we all clear on this part, guys? Please give me a quick confirmation. Kurshid, Shweta, Rahul, Ranjit, webinar registrant, Edureka guest. Wonderful. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. All right, so now let's proceed further. Okay, I have a query from someone. So does it save automatically or we have to save them periodically with version names? Now, it is saved automatically. It is saved automatically, so we don't have to save anything here. All right, we have to save automatically. Okay, I have a query coming in from Simran. So rollback, can you explain? Show Simran. So by rollback, we mean suppose we have current copy here, right? We have current copy saved as version 3. And now if we want to roll back, that means if we now want to restore the first version, right? Then we can roll back to this version. If we want this version to be restored, then we can roll back to this version as a part of V or as a part of VCS. So is it clear, Simran? So I have this query from YouTube. Yes, I have a query from Don Bunty. So the copies of the data itself is called as version. Yes. So all the changes happening here will be saved as a version itself. So is it clear, everyone? Okay, I have a query coming in from Priya. So do we maintain any description file document mention what all changes in which version? Priya, all the changes are automatically recorded, right? So suppose even if we perform any of the changes in the file, then that change will be saved as a different version altogether that we can roll back to. So is it clear, Priya? Please give me a quick confirmation. Yes, Simran, when we don't want the changes, then we have to roll back to the previous version. Suppose if we didn't, if the client simply asks us to discard the third version, to discard this copy, then we can roll back to the previous version. We can do that. Yes, Raja, we do have this. We can check. We'll see how it does work as we proceed further, step by step. All right. Okay, I have a query from someone. So GitHub can hold any kind of code that is Java, shell script, etc. GitHub can hold. Yes, we can store multiple pieces of data. We can store multiple types of data there. We can do that. Gurjeet, in versions, do we save only alternatives or updates of full copy of document in every version? We have the entire copy, Gurjeet, that we can roll back to. How? Okay, is it clear, Gurjeet? Please give me a quick information. Okay, let's suppose we have this version here, Gurjeet, right? Now, obviously, currently there may be multiple commands or multiple things that may have been wiped out in the other versions, correct? So that's why we do maintain the entire copy of the entire file, right? So what it does is simply maintains that it simply track the changes done on the files, right? So whatever file we are seeing at will be getting rolled back to the previous version. So it keeps a track record of what has been added, what has been removed, and if we want to roll back to the previous version, then those changes are used as a reference. All right. Is it clear, Gurjeet? Okay, Ravi, so how to know what are the changes made in version 2 when we are in version 3? We'll see to that part, Ravi, step by step. Currently, we are just simply discussing, or we had just started our discussion on Git. We'll see everything, how those changes are recorded, how we can see those changes, and how we can implement this. We'll see all of these things step by step as we continue further. All right? All right, guys, so now let's proceed. So let us first of all wipe out this $1 million training of ours. Let's clear this out. All right. Now, why exactly we require version control system? Because see, in the old case, in the old age, what we had, if we had multiple team of developers come working on the same code, working on the same project, then different tasks were assigned to different team members. For example, let's say all the team members are working on a single homepage of the website, right? So all of these members will be working individually on the functionalities, and there was no way where we can compile all the code at once automatically, right? But in the VCS, using a version control system, using a simple source code management, what we can do, all the team members can work parallelly on the same page, and they can contribute in their own functionalities, right? So for example, let's say if we have to understand this, let's go back. For example, let's say again we go back to our drawing board. For example, let's suppose here we have the first team. Here we have the first team. Now they are working on the header section. They are working on the header section, right? So now there are two methods here. Either they can work on the header section separately in separate files, right? So here this one is given by suppose by the first user, and suppose the other user, there is some other user who is working on some other parts of the website. Suppose the other user is working on the body content, right? On the body itself, on the body, right? Although now here we can say here we have head section and here we have body, and now this is being committed by another user, right? And there is a third developer who is working on the footer section, on the footer section of the website, right? So there's a third developer who is working on the footer section, right? So now all of these three developers can work on separate files, and they can merge these three files together at the end. They can do that, right? Or as a simple process, what they all can do, they can all work on the same project. They can all work on the same project where different piece of code can be recorded. For example, someone is working on header, right? One user is working on header, suppose user one. Then they are working on the same page. One user is working on the body section, right? Then they can work on the one on this page itself, and the third user is working on the footer section. Then we have the third user working on this part here, right? So instead of working on separate files, they can work all on the same file, and they can record the changes, right? So even when we are monitoring the changes here, we can see which code has been submitted by which user and at what time, and what are the variations or versions of that code done by that user itself as a part of VCS. All right. So are we clear on this part, everyone? Please give me a quick information. Everyone, are we all clear on this part? Gurjeet, Rahul, Shweta, Edureka guest, Ranjit. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. Now let's proceed further. Again, let's lose out on a couple of $1 million. Let's erase our drawing here. All right, let's get right back. Now, as a part of maintaining the versions here, each and every snapshot of the versions are properly documented and stored, right? So each and every changes happening on Git repository as a part of GitHub will be stored as different versions, right? Even though we make any changes, any small changes, then we'll be having a different version of it, right? We'll be having different versions of it, all right? So then we can always track back which version we want to roll back to, right? And as a part of backup, even in case our central copy crashes, right? Backup is always stored in our local servers, because if we talk about now in terms of VCS, we basically have two different types of VCS. We have a centralized version control system, and then we have a distributed version control system. We have centralized and then we have distributed, right? So in centralized, what happens? Suppose if we have, again, let's go back to our drawing mode. So in centralized, what happens? Now here, if we have a central repository, right? And suppose here we have multiple team of developers working. Suppose here we have workstation 1, here we have workstation 2, workstation 2, and here we have workstation 3. That means here we have 3 workstations. That means 3 developers working, right? Now, once they are working on the code, once they have finalized the code here, then they all can push directly to a remote repository, right? Now, this is a setup for a centralized, now this is called as a centralized VCS. This is called as a centralized VCS here, as a part of central, right? Whereas in distributed, what happens in distributed, we don't now these workstations, these workers, they do not submit, they do not commit their code directly to a remote server or to a remote repository. We have a local repository first of all in place, right? So now this is available to the to the local system itself, so that once the code has been completed, it first of all gets pushed to the local repository as a local repository, and then only it gets pushed to a central repository itself, right? So the versions of for each and every code are maintained in local repository as well, even though suppose the connection to the central repository has been broken, or central repository suppose for some reason it crashes, then we can have the code stored as a backup in a local repository itself. As a part of local repository, we can do that. All right. And this setup here is called as distributed. This setup here is called as distributed version control system. All right. So are we clear on these two differences, guys? On central and distributed, please give me a quick confirmation. Are we all clear on the concept of central repository and central VCS and distributed VCS? Okay, Guruji. So after updation to the central, do we maintain local? Yes, Guruji, we do maintain local as well, right? So even though once we have submitted the same thing to a central repository, then we can maintain a backup copy in the local as well. Is it clear, Guruji? Please give me a quick information. Okay, Gurjit. So how do we keep a track record of which has been updated? We'll be coming to that part, Gurjit, step by step as we continue further. We'll see everything step by step. All right. All right. So now let's proceed further. Now, whenever we change our version, VCS always help us in providing up with a proper description. That means what exactly was changed and when it was changed. So every changes are recorded with their particular timestamp. All right. Now, next we have different version control tools, right? So in terms of version control tools, we have Git, we have Subversion as SVN, we have CVS, and then we have Mercurial, right? So these are the main tools available for version control system. But as you know, the most popular is Git itself. So Git is the most popular tool out there as compared to others. So if we take a look at the graph here, then Git is the most popular tool out there, then followed by SVN, Mercurial, and then we have CVS. Right? Now let's get started on Git and GitHub. So Git, as we know, as we had discussed already, Git is a distributed version control system, right? So we don't have a centralized system in Git. We have a distributed. So that means the now we have workstation here. So first of all, the changes are committed to a local repository, and then only it is committed to a central repository here, right? So the workstations, we do not commit directly to the remote repository. First of all, we commit to a local, and then it is committed to the remote repository itself, right? So it all works on push and pull basis. Now, first of all, let's understand how exactly Dominion enterprises use this, right? So basically, now in terms of problem statement, so first of all, the company called Dominion Enterprises had its own goal, projects, budgets, and they had unique needs and workflows, because here we have multiple team of developers working on the same code, right? So again, basically, they wanted to make the private code publicly to make their workflow more transparent across the company itself, right? Now, why they chose GitHub as a solution? Because they already observed that some of the team members, okay, are already working on GitHub, right? So again, now they wanted to explore how GitHub can be a perfect fit for their requirement, right? So basically, they put all the codes in one place and made it easier for them to collaborate on different projects, right? That was their main requirement. All right. So what did now basically what GitHub does is, suppose we have one team sitting in Seattle, one team of developers sitting in Tokyo, the other team sitting in Australia, in Sydney, other team members sitting in Mumbai, other team members sitting in Singapore, right? So if we have multiple team of developers sitting sitting remotely in different remote locations, then all of them can keep on working on the same project, and they can continue contributing in the same project by saving all the files and changes in a center location itself, right? And that is the advantage given by GitHub, right? So that it can collaborate between multiple different developers, and it can also help in maintaining different versions submitted by different development teams out there, right? Now, Git, as we know, is simply a distributed control version that we had discussed already. So here, basically, we have the local repository, then it gets submitted to the remote repository itself, right? For making sure that we have a good quality and we do maintain the entire structural path for the development. All right. Now, these are different features of Git. Git is distributed. Git is compatible with different platforms. It is non-linear. That means, again, here we don't have to be sequential. Again, we can maintain multiple branches. Now, when we talk about branches, let's understand what exactly branch is. So if we go back into a drawing mode, for example, let's say now, as we know, Git is a VCS, as a version control system, right? So now what we can do, we can maintain. Now, let's suppose first of all, here we have the workstation, right? And then we have a local repository. Then we have then in workstation, then we have and then we have the local repository, right? So for example, let's suppose now whenever we work on any of the code, we work on a master branch. We work on a master branch. This is called as master branch, right? Now, when we are working on the master branch contains the main source code, right? Now, let's suppose we got a feedback that, okay, we have to work on fixing bugs. We have to work on fixing bugs, right? Now, instead of making changes to the main source code, what we do, we open up a separate branch. We open up a separate branch, right? So that we can do all the bug fixes inside that branch itself, even in multiple versions, right? And once the entire development has been authorized and checked by every development team, then it can be merged. Then only the final copy which has been authorized, only that then can be merged with the branch, with the master layout, right? So this is referred as branch, right? So all the experimentation, all the bug fixes are done on the branch level, so that we do not make changes to the source code, because as we know, making any change in the source code is not a recommended method, right? So we can keep all the changes happening on the branch, and then we can maintain the same. Then we can maintain it on the main node itself. All right. So are we clear on the main differences between the branch and the master and branch? Please give me a quick information, everyone. Please give me a quick information, guys. Shweta, Ranjit, webinar. Okay, Rahul's confused in branch. Gurjeet confused in branch. Okay, no problem. Let's go right back and let's have a quick discussion on branch as well. Okay, Umair, not clear. Okay, no problem. Let's repeat that quickly. Sure, Ranjit. So now let's clear out this part. Now, for example, suppose here we have a source code, right? Here we have a source code, the main file here. Now, this is what the main file that we are working on, right? Now, let's suppose we got a report. Okay, we need to make changes to the bug, right? Now, what we can do, we can start by creating a copy of it, right? Now we can start fixing it by keeping a copy of it or the same version, right? And then we can conduct multiple tests, right? Because as we know, when we are testing out, we may have to test more than once time, right? We may have to test the code more than one time because it may happen that some part of the code it may work and some part it may not work. So we have to use multiple permutation and combination for it, right? And if we do this experimentation on the source code, then suppose here we can say we can maintain, let's suppose they can be 10 different versions created out of this experimentation, right? So here what we can do now, without making changes in the main source code, what we can do once we are done experimenting, right, then only we can merge this with the main source code, then only we can update the fix that we have done in the main source code, right? So that it maintains a cleaner version as well, so that if we have multiple versions being created, again it will create more confusion in the in the main branch, right? That's why we do all the experimentation, all the bug fixes are done on the secondary branch, and we save the master layout only for the major updates or only after those has been fixed properly. All right. So clear on this part, Ranjit, Rahul, Gurjeet, please give me a quick information. Everyone. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. Yes, Ravi, for each version, this is done. They are, if we make change in the master code, again, we can have multiple versions, right? But just to make sure that we do not change the master code, we do all the experimentation in the branch where we can store multiple variations. And if we make a final change to the source, to the master branch, then that will also be recorded as a different version. All right. Is it clear, webinar registrant? I think this was query from your end. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation. Now let's get right back. So now again, obviously it is lightweight, it is more robust in terms of speed. Again, it is open source. That means that again, we don't have to pay anything for using Git and GitHub. It is reliable. We can have multiple security measures in place. That means we can add only those users for which we have granted the access to, and thus it is economical since it is open source. It is a highly economical in if you want to start using it. If you want to start using it here. All right. All right. As we discussed, distributed always make sure that we have a distributed development of code. That means again, each and every development team working on the same platform on the same code can make collaborative contributions, right? Obviously, it is compatible with every operating systems and protocols, right? It is non-linear. That means again, it can support non-linear development cycle itself. Branching, we have discussed that we can create multiple branches, and once we are done making the changes, we can always merge them together. We can do that. Obviously, it is lightweight. That means again, it is lightweight as compared to the different compression techniques. It is more robust. That means again, in terms of fetching the data from local repository, it is 100 times faster than the remote repository itself. Because again, that version is stored locally itself, right? We don't have to set up a connection to a remote repository to fetch those changes. All right. And obviously it is open source, so we can modify the source code exactly as per requirement. It is more reliable. That means even though our data crashes in the remote server, we can have the one copy of it saved in a local repository itself, right? We use multiple SHA-1 to maintain the naming and identifying objects, and that's why it is more secure as compared to other VCS, right? And that's why again it is an open source, that it is available for free, which we can always customize for our own further requirements. We can do that. All right. Yeah, okay, Ravi. So is branching done before the code is put to production? Yes, Ravi. Branching is done obviously production, and plus if we are working on fixes, if we are working on experimentation, then all of these are done on branch itself. Is that clear, Ravi? Please give me a quick information. All right, perfect. Thank you for confirmation. Now, what exactly repository is? A repository is simply a storage area that we create in order to store our different versions of Git, right? For example, suppose here we have GitHub. The most popular which we use for connection to Git from Git is we have GitHub, right? So we have a local repository, and now whatever we do on local repository, so we deploy it on GitHub as a central repository itself, right? So it can act as a storage area. It can act as a central repository for keeping record, for keeping the files being submitted, being committed by different developers around the globe, right? Whoever have the access of this particular GitHub. All right. So as you know, central repository is simply saved on a remote server. It includes multiple .git repository folder, and again, it is meant for sharing and exchanging of data. As we discussed already, the basic setup for a distributed work control of version control system, right? Next is, now let's discuss on Git operations and Git commands, how we can set up Git here, right? First of all, now here we can, for getting started on Git, first of all, as we know, we have multiple commands, so that for initiating Git here, for starting making changes, for pushing the files to a staging area, and then for pushing the file from staging area to the local repository, and then finally pushing it from local repository to the remote repository itself, right? So first of all, let's see how we can set up Git. Now for using Git, now if we are using Windows, we can simply use a program called as Git Bash, right? Now there are multiple ways of using Git. We can always install Git and use a command prompt. We can get started by using Git Bash. In case we are deploying anything on, suppose on cloud premises, then we can also install CLI. For example, suppose we are using AWS CLI, right? Then we can use CLI for accessing Git as well, depending upon which platform we are comfortable with, right? So here we can choose here we can select this particular page here. So here we can go to Git download, and depending upon the system, we can choose a system, and then our download will get started. So let me share this link with everyone. Let me share this link so that we can open this up. Here you go. So I've shared the link, guys, so you can all use this to in getting started on downloading Git, right? So once we have chosen the system here, that means if we are using Windows or we are using Mac, we can download for any environment here, right? So even if we are using Windows or Mac, we can simply download this to get started working on Git. All right. So do we all have the link, guys? Please give me a quick confirmation, everyone. Do we all have the link? Priyanka, Rahul, Jagdish, Kajit. Okay, yes, but I'm using Ubuntu. No problem in that. Now we can use the command terminal. We can use the command terminal in order to get started. We can use that. Yes, Vinay, we will be covering covering how to set up Git and how we can connect our Git to Git repository and how we can configure the user access. We'll be covering that part. Umesh, so this we don't compare Git and GitHub. So Git is a VCS that we use for maintaining versions, and GitHub simply is a repository, right? So you simply use GitHub to store whatever code we have worked upon. We simply use GitHub for storing that. All right. Yes, Goji. So basically, we simply now, okay, in the meantime, this is again being downloaded. We can simply showcase GitHub. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and set up our account on GitHub. So in case we don't have the account set up on GitHub, we can simply type in as GitHub and then get started on how we can set up our account on GitHub, right? So GitHub is available free of cost. Although we do have two plans, we do have a pro plan as well that we can subscribe to. But for getting started, we don't have to pay any subscription fee. It is completely free of cost, right? So we can go ahead and create an account on GitHub. Let's do that. So let me share this link with everyone so that we can open it up and create our account on GitHub in case we don't have the account yet. Okay, I have a query. So can we do branching on GitHub? Yes, we can do that. And we are looking to that part step by step. So first of all, here we have the link. So I've shared the link with you all, guys. So once we are on GitHub, we can simply sign up by entering our username, password that we wish to use for getting started. And once we have already signed up, we can click on sign in to sign into our repository here. Suppose here we simply type in our repository. Okay, just a moment. So once we sign up here, we'll be getting the access to our GitHub account that we can use to get started. All right, so here we have the verification code. We can click on verify. Now, once we have the Git bash installed, we can simply open it up and get it installed into our system. Now, as you can see, currently we have actually now we have logged into our GitHub, right? So here we can start by creating multiple repository, or we can choose the repository that we want to get started with, right? We can choose the existing repository, or if you want to create one new one, then we can go back and click on new repository. We can go ahead and click on new repository so that we can start a new repository that we can use for getting connected to our Git project, right? So suppose if we want to name this one as Edureka 101. So here we can name the repository anything. And here we can add a description to it. Now, if we want to make this repository public, that means anyone can have the access to this repository. Then we can keep it public, or we can keep it private as well, depending upon our requirement, right? Now, once we are done, we can simply click on create repository. And now we'll be having a repository created. And now we have the link for our repository that we will be using to in order to stay connected, right? So as you can see here, we have got the link for the repository. That means when we start working on GitHub, on Git bash, then we can use this to link our repository with our Git account. So let's set it up. So once we have the Git bash downloaded, we can click on next and set it up. Now, if we want, we can keep the default settings already checked, especially when we are beginners. So we don't want to play around with the tools here. So first of all, are we all clear, guys, how we can create the repository in GitHub? Please give me a quick information. Everyone, are we all clear on how to create a repository on GitHub? Please give me a quick information, guys. So first of all, are we all clear, guys? Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. Now, Git bash, if in case we're using Windows or Mac, Git bash is the most, we can say the easiest format in which we can get started on using Git, right? So especially when we are beginners, we have no idea on how to get started. Then Git bash is the first and most easy, or we can say easiest format through which we can get started on using Git. Now, once we are done, we can simply launch Git bash, finish. All right. Now, as you can see, currently we have initiated Git, right? We have initiated Git here, right? Now, in order to get started, first of all, we do have to create a project here. Let me zoom this up. So I hope this is good enough for everyone. I hope you all are able to see the code here. This font size, I think, is good enough for everyone so that we don't stretch our eyes. No, Priyanka, we won't be needing Git bash in that context. All right. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. Just a moment, everyone. All right. Now, as you can see here, currently we are working on this location called C. Under C, we have users, and then we have the username, right? Now, if we want to get started, first of all, we can get started by making a directory for our project, because we have to make sure that whatever project we are working on, we do need to make a directory out of it, right? So here we can start by creating a directory. And for building a directory, we have simple command called make directory, right? So we have mkdir, through which we can make directory. Here we can make directory out of it, right? And then we can define the directory name. Suppose we want to call this as Edureka. So now once we have made the directory, now we can change to the directory location called cd Edureka. So cd is basically useful for changing the directory. Now, since we have already one directory created as its make directory as Edureka, then we can change it to cd Edureka itself, right? So now, as you can see here, now we have changed the directory to Edureka itself, right? Now, for getting started, first of all, we have to initialize Git in this folder. Now, for doing that, what we have to do, we simply have to use this command called git init, right? So now, when we use git init, it will simply initialize the entire folder that we have created. That means now any kind of changes happening inside any of the files here will be recorded, will saved as a different version altogether, right? So now let's do one thing. Let's navigate to this folder and let's try to add a simple code in this particular folder itself, right? So let's try to do that so that we can see this on a live basis, how we can use Git. So here we can navigate to the user that we have created. So here we can go to users. Now, under this folder that we have, now we have the Edureka folder that we have already created, right? And now let's do one thing. Let's create one code here. Let's create a simple HTML code and let's try to make some changes, right? So let's do one thing. Let's add a simple code here called HTML. Here we can write as, suppose as head. Under head, we can add a simple title. We can add title as welcome. Now, next is we can suppose here we can close the head. Here we can open a body. Let's suppose here we can add a h1 tag called as welcome to Edureka. Here we can close the h1 tag. And now we can suppose close the body. Now we can try to close the body here and close the HTML as well. All right. Now let's do one thing. Let's save this piece of code. Let's save it. Let's click on save as. It's because currently, let's say we are simply working on making sure that we add this as a project, right? So here we can navigate to the same folder, users, our username, and then we have the folder. So here we can save this as suppose demo.html, demo.html, because we want this to be saved as an HTML file. Click on save. And now this has been saved in this folder as demo.html itself, right? So now let's come right back. Now, currently we do have a file. We do have a file created as demo.html. We do have a file created as demo.html here, right? Now, let's suppose once we now, if we want to add this file to a staging area, what we can do, we can simply use a command called git add. We can simply use git add. Because now, okay, we need to add we need to add the file name here. Suppose now here we have multiple files. So suppose if we have multiple files, then we need to define the file name here. That means which file we are moving from the workspace to the staging area, right? So once we are done, this file is currently being added to the staging area altogether, right? Now let's suppose we want to start tracking the changes. Now let's suppose we want to start tracking the changes that we have done in this particular demo file, right? Now for tracking the changes, what we can do, we can simply click on the, or we can simply make some changes, and then we can use a command called git difference, right? So let's do that. Let's come back to our folder, to our notepad, so that we can here try to make some changes. For example, let's say we add a change called, suppose we add another header here, as we are learning Git and GitHub, right? We are learning Git and GitHub here. So here we can close this up. Now let's save this up. Let's save this. Now currently, as we know, this file is already being tracked. This file is already being tracked by VCS called Git, right? This file is currently being tracked. Now what we can do, we can go back. We can go back and into our, we can save it up. Now let's go back. Now for tracking the changes, what we can do is we can simply write a simple command called git difference, right? And whatever changes has been done, whatever changes has been done, we can see the changes being saved as a different version, right? And here the change that we have done in the file has been highlighted in green. Can we all see this? Everyone, please give me a quick confirmation, guys. Can we see this change being highlighted? Everyone, please give me a quick confirmation, guys. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. So that's now that exactly is what VCS is. That exactly what VCS is. So here we can start tracking the changes one by one, right? And whatever change is being done will be highlighted. Whatever change is being done, that will be highlighted by using this VCS, right? As a part of GitHub. All right. Now now let's suppose here we have, now suppose let's say here we have want to make some changes here, right? Now here what we want to do is here we want to make some changes, right? Then we can simply, now whatever change we want to make, we can do that. Whatever change we want to make, we can do that, right? And once we are done making the changes, we can simply commit this to a local repository first. Okay, I have a query from someone, Priyanka. So if we add more than one file in Git and then write in Git difference command, how will it be able to show the differences? We can see all the changes happening here, Priyanka. For example, let's do one thing. Let's add another file. Let's add another file. Let's create one separate file here. Suppose here we have second file. Now this file is suppose for CSS. Suppose here we define CSS for H1. Then here we have suppose color for H1 is suppose red. And we save this file. We save this file as style.css. We click on save as. Here we name it as style.css. Now this file is again we are adding in the same folder, right? For a GitHub project, we can save it up. Now, since we have added the file here, we also need to add this file into the staging area. So here we have git add style.css. Right now, this has also been added to the staging area. Now, let's try to do one thing. Let's try making some changes to style.css. Suppose here we add the font size. Here we add the font size as suppose 48 pixel. Suppose we made this change. Let's save it. And we make some changes to our HTML as well. Let's suppose here we add another h3, or suppose we add a simple center tag. We put all of these in the same center. We add these in same center here. We save it up. Let's save it. Come back. Now, if we want to see the differences here, again we can add git difference. Can you all see this, everyone? Is it clear, Priyanka? Please give me a quick information. So all the changes are being recorded here, whether we make change in one file, whether we make changes in other file, all of these will be recorded, and whatever gets deleted, whatever gets removed will be saved as a part of another version itself. Okay, Vemina, so these are versions. These are versions as we can see here, right? So we have A, then we have B. These are what? Versions that is being now maintained. All right. Gurjeet, it simply specifies what has been added and removed. What has been added and removed, it simply gets specified by plus and minus. All right, perfect. So thank you for. So is it clear till now, everyone? Please give me a quick information, guys. All right. Now, perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. And now, if we wish to commit these changes to the local repository, right? Then what we can do, we can simply add a small command called git. We can add something as git. Then we have commit. So commit does what? Commit simply pushes the current code into the local repository, right? And here we can define simple message for the commit as well. Suppose here we can write a message called changes in files, right? Now, as you can see here, now this commit has been committed. Okay, we have not made sure. Okay, we haven't set the configuration here. First of all, we whatever commit has been done. Obviously, we need to have our username and password also defined here as a part of configuration here, right? So what we can do now, because each and every commit has to be recorded, that means which user has made which kind of changes here, right? So we can configure it. Suppose here we have config global. Now here we have user email. Suppose if you want, we can use any email. Suppose here we can use edureka@gmail.com, because every change needs to be specified here as well, right? That means this is being done by which user. So that, because again, it's a VCS, correct? And the main idea of VCS is we need to keep a track record of the changes plus which user has implemented those particular changes, right? We need to keep a track record of that, right? And again, once we have configured this, again, we can run the commit command, commit m, and then we have the message, suppose changes. And as you can see here, now these two files has been committed to the local repository. Now these two files has been committed to the local repository here, right? So are we clear on this part here, guys? How we can commit the changes to a local repository? Please give me a quick information, everyone. Thank you for appreciation, Priya. Okay, Vishal, so why changes to be done? So Vishal, basically we use Git for tracking the changes. So suppose if we, even if we want to roll back to any of the previous version, let's suppose we have done hundreds of changes, right? And if we want to roll back to our 10th version, then we can roll back. Then we can roll back easily using Git. All right. Okay, I have another query coming in. All right. All right. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. Okay, so webinar. So for every commit, will it create a new file with version ID? Yes, absolutely. So when we are committing here, we are simply committing it to a local repository that we can push to a remote repository itself. We can do that. No, Gurjeet, rollback does not delete the recent version. So for example, again, the client came back to us, and now the client wants to restore back again to the new version, right? Again, we can roll it easily using the current version. So all the versions are maintained in Git. All the versions are maintained. All right. So is it clear, everyone? Please give me a quick information, guys. Perfect. Thank you for confirmation, everyone. Okay, Parish, so how does branching and merging work with Git? I mean, if we have to multiple branches to merge to one master. Sure, Parish, so again, that is a part of elaboration. That means if we have, now, first of all, we do have to create multiple branches here, and then we can merge those branches with a master branch, right? And that will be a part of our elaborate discussion in our subsequent sessions, all right? Please give me a quick information, Paresh. No problem. Thank you for the confirmation. And now, once we are done, now if we want to push whatever we have done, now what we can do is we can simply add up our own repository name by using this command called remote add origin, and then we can define the exact URL of the remote repository that we have copied there, right? So whatever repository name that we have assigned here, we have to define the name, the URL of that particular repository here, right? For example, we did create a repository name as this one. Like, so we have repository saved on github.com/ the username, and then we have the repository name itself, right? So we have to use the same link in order to push our changes to our remote repository. So first of all, we have the command called remote add, and this will be the name that we are assigning to this particular master, or we can say remote repository, right? Okay, so we forgot to add git. So here we have git remote add origin, and then we can define the URL here, github.com/ the username, and then we have the repository name as 101.git. So once we do that, we can simply link, we are simply adding our remote repository, right, back into our Git account. As you can see here, we have added that. And now if you want to get started for pushing it, then we have to simply use a simple command called git push origin master. Because remember, so here we have simple command called git push origin and master. So origin is the alias we have given to our remote repository, whereas master is what has been assigned to our local repository, right? So once we simply use this syntax here, then we can simply push. So what it will do, it will simply connect our local repository to our remote repository, and once the connection has been set up, it will simply push the code, right? And as you can see here, now it is asking us for the credential, right? So we simply have to enter our credentials to our Git account here. So we can simply enter our credentials here and password, so that now it can connect. Now it can connect to our remote repository. So once Git authorizes the right credentials, it will simply push it. Now, as you can see here, now this has been pushed. Now, whatever file has been pushed will be available for us to see in our GitHub, right? So we can come back here. We can come back to our GitHub account. We can refresh. Can you see this, everyone? We have these two files that we have pushed using our local Git from a local repository into the remote repository here. So are we all clear on this part, everyone? Please give me a quick information. Are we all clear on this part, everyone? Please give me a quick information, guys. So whatever we have done, we have now pushed this to our remote repository. All right. Thank you for the confirmation, guys. So now that's how we can get started on Git. That's how we can get started on Git here, right? And as we have discussed, please yes, Goji, we can see that. We can just simply follow our YouTube URL and you'll be able to see that. All right. Sure, Ranji. So we'll be focusing on that as we continue further in our sessions, the rollback as well. All right. So as today we are limited on time here, so that's what we are mainly to focus on. And as we have discussed already, guys, so we all join up our meetups to get updates on all the webinars that we are conducting on a monthly basis. So we are there. So there are more than 100 webinars that we can stay connected to and get updated for free, right? All right. So I guess you all had a wonderful time for last 90 minutes, guys. And thank you so much again for joining. I hope you all really enjoyed the session. And as always, once we end the session, you all will be getting an NPS feedback form. So please do rate us excellent in that feedback form as a small token of appreciation for the hard work and time we have put in, right? So please do rate us excellent in that feedback form, and hope to see you all soon joining us for next sessions. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.